Welcome back to TYT Sports, everybody. Andre is joining me in just a second. We're going to reopen a conversation that we had about 8 months ago, and that has to do with the greatest NBA players to never win a championship ring. We feel that given that it's the NBA Finals, given that, well, LeBron's got a ring right now, so in Curry and Thompson, all the Warriors have a ring. Technically, Kyrie doesn't have a ring, nor does Kevin Love, or many of that Cleveland Cavaliers team. But there are much better players that have played long, illustrious careers that did not get a coveted NBA Finals ring, trophy, or the experience. So we're going to begin, and we took this list from USA Today just as a talking point to give us some structure to the clip. And we're going to begin with 11 through 20 because there are 20 guys, and the guys 11 through 20 I think are really up for debate just because, in general, this list of players, some are still active. So let's take a look. Let's go back to that list. Number 20, I believe, came in, if I can find my list, Dikembe Mutombo. 19, Alex English. 18, Chris, wish he didn't call timeout, Weber. 17, Bernard King. 16, Vince Carter. Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, Steve Nash, Reggie Miller, and Tracy McGrady. Now, the first thing that might jump out at you on this list is that Russell Westbrook, the guy's 28 years old, still been playing in the league for a long, he's got 10 more years in the league if he stays healthy and all that good stuff. So obviously there's that one. The one that stands out to me, and even as a Knicks fan, I don't think Carmelo Anthony is a top 20 player to never win a ring. And I actually don't think he's going to win a ring, even though I hold out hope for the Knicks. Andre, I'm curious what you think of this one because I know how much you dive into the analytics. I believe the advanced stats would tell you that Carmelo Anthony isn't better than any of the other 19 guys on this list or 20 guys on this list.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I believe the analytics would agree with you. And as we may have mentioned on the air one time before, I've participated in a few of these kind of, say, top 100 rankings projects on this website over at Real GM. And so I kind of like went through, and I guess I found the top 22 players that don't have a ring, and Carmelo's not one of those names, according to our list. Melo is a scorer. He's an excellent scorer. He can, finish off the ball, but he's primarily a give him the ball and let him score kind of player. He's not a offense initiator in that he doesn't really distribute to his teammates that well. He doesn't play defense that well. And so any plus-minus study never really has him up among the elite, based anywhere near where his reputation would have him. So I would agree. He's not in my top 20, maybe not, I don't know, maybe not in my top 25 or 30 as far as best players that never won a ring.
Reggie Miller, to me, and this comes from a couple different places. One, I didn't think Reggie Miller, although he's a specialist from the three-point line and he had that clutch factor, right? There's no such thing as the clutch factor, technically, would tell you. Just like they would say that there's really no momentum in sports. Does that really exist? And not trying to disrespect Reggie Miller, I just feel that Reggie Miller was never a top 10 guy in the league when he played. Guys like Stockton, Malone, Pippen, Jordan, and I wish I could name off more off the top of my. Patrick Ewing, I would consider better than Reggie Miller by a lot during his time. And again, trying to leave some Knicks bias out of this, I just feel that Reggie Miller, because of certain moments, 8 points in 9 seconds, and his inability to be clutch in games that mattered. Game 7, was he 9-15 in Game 7s in his career? He did get to the finals once. I just don't think that Reggie Miller was the type of guy who really was a greatest to never win a ring. But 12, I just think he should be dropped lower. I'm being nitpicky, like 19, 20, just on the cusp. I'm curious what your thoughts on that one are as well.
So it's interesting. All of the arguments that we just made for Melo, almost the reverse is true of Reggie.
Is it?
So we did have him, he ended up 11th, I guess, on the list from the Real GM Top 100. And a lot of the arguments for him were he had a very analytics-friendly game before there was much in the way of analytics. He was a long wing. He's like 6'7", 6'8", but his entire game was playing off the ball, shooting three-pointers. He wasn't one that was going to initiate the offense. He was just going to be a finisher. But he was such a hugely high efficiency finisher. If you start looking at the kind of box score oriented advanced analytics, he always measured out extremely high because he shot a good percentage from the field. He shot a good percentage from three, and a lot of them. And he also shot a relatively high number of free throws. So his true shooting percentage was way up into the 60s, which wasn't the kind of thing you saw from most volume scorers. And then Reggie also had, you mentioned the clutch factor. He's one of the few players that all of his numbers go up significantly in the postseason. Like in the regular season, he wasn't often scoring much above 20 points, if at all. But in the postseason, he had several runs where he was up in the 20s, still shooting in the 60s percentile range as far as true shooting percentage goes, which gives you a number one option scorer who can play off the ball, so he's not ball dominant. He's creating excellent spacing. He's finishing at a very high rate, and he has, the ability to ramp up his game in the postseason. And then he did it for a really long time because he had a really long career. So you put that together, there's a lot of career value there. And you mentioned a lot of his peers. You mentioned Ewing and Malone and Barkley. Well, all of them are also on this list, but higher up, you know. But Reggie is, as far as I can see, I don't really have any problem with him being in that 11-12 range.
Yeah, so I stand corrected on a few things there just because if the analytics are that friendly to him, then that's fair. I guess I hold the Game 7 record against him, which is not necessarily fair because then there's things like LeBron James's finals records that should be held against him when they really shouldn't be. So, you know what? You live, you learn. You learn something new every day. Why not? All right, let's get to the top 10, though, and we're going to leave all the Knicks talk out of the top 10. Just because we've talked too much about the Knicks as it is. I know the next card we have is George Gervin, Chris Paul, Neek, Allen Iverson, Stockton, Ewing, Durant, Malone, Baylor, and Barkley. I actually like this top 10 because I like that Elgin Baylor was a guy. Lakers ran off a series of wins, NBA Finals wins, the day after Elgin Baylor retired. He retired in the morning and the Lakers won the Finals that night, unfortunately. But Elgin Baylor was truly, in my opinion, an unbelievable talent in the NBA, a workhorse, somebody who was a true leader of his team. I mean, the accolades are all there. 11-time All-Star, 36 points and nearly 20 rebounds during his 2-year peak. That was his average. In the mid-60s. And then, of course, early 1971-72 season, and then the Lakers went on to win the NBA title without him. I feel for Elgin Baylor. Of course, Barkley's up there just because of his rebounding dominance, his ability to score the ball. Karl Malone. And then I guess the big one, just to keep it a little bit more relevant towards today's day and age. And here's the big question. If Durant doesn't win a title, is he the greatest to never win a title? It's tough.
All right.
It's really tough.
He's another really interesting case in that he had that dominant 2014 MVP season, but he's always been ranked a little higher than the analytics might suggest. Mm-hmm. Not like Carmelo, because he really is having a huge impact on games, but the fact that maybe he's 6'11", maybe if he was playing power forward or, he would be creating more spacing than he does as a wing. He doesn't, he pulling a wing out to the three-point line maybe isn't as effective as pulling a big man out. So even with his excellent volume and efficiency, he's maybe not having the same spacing impact as somebody like a Dirk Nowitzki had. Right. Is he better than Karl Malone, who was number one on our list? It could be an excellent question, but Malone, he was a pretty tough dude for about 20 years. Yeah. So I could say maybe Durant might be in the mix, but I don't see it as a clear-cut case.
0-3 in the finals, and then they tried to get him that exit ring. I guess that's what we'll give it a call for. When the 2004 Lakers got together with Gary Payton and Malone, and they got nearly swept by the Detroit Pistons. So that didn't work out all too well for them. The rise of Chauncey Billups and the mask of Richard Hamilton and the insanity of the Wallaces. All right, so the last one I'm just going to mention real quick before we exit out this one because we are out of time, unfortunately. But Chris Paul is a guy who I feel just deserves a ring because the way he plays basketball, his ability as a pure point guard, his selflessness to share the basketball as well as he does, ability to score, defensive. You really couldn't ask for a better point guard in the true essence of the word. I'm hoping you would agree with that in terms of his ability to change a game.
Like his story, if you watch his background story, you just want to pull for the guy. The last person I'll mention really quick is Steve Nash, because he's the biggest difference, I think, between the two lists I'm looking at. He was 13 on this list we've been looking at. We had him as number 4 on the Real GM list. And so, is he a 2-time MVP, or is he a guy who wasn't even a starter till he was almost 30? That's kind of the question on Nash.
Oh yeah, that's Steve Nash had some. Okay, people watching the clip, I'm going to leave the top 100 Steve Nash assists in the comment section below, and then you can lose 40 minutes of your day watching the beauty of how he passed the ball. He also was a hell of a good three-point shooter. People forget about that one too. All right, so that's the USA Today list. We'll also leave a link to the Real GM list if you want to look at that one as well from Andre and friends. But make sure you comment below. Who is the greatest player to never win a ring? And I'm more interested to know, where do you think guys like Kevin Durant and Chris Paul finish if they don't win a ring? I would love to see them win rings. They deserve rings. But if they don't, where are they on this list? Make sure to follow Andre at Professor DRZ on Twitter, and check out the Hoops Lab and the RotoWire NBA blog for even more NBA analysis from Andre over at rotowire.com. We're over at TYT Sports on Twitter, and make sure to like, favorite, subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.